Okay, so, as promised, Maisey Yates, New York Times bestselling author, romance novel, rodeo, Christmas at Evergreen Ranch, a Gold Valley novel, and Lifetime. I think you would come closer to putting this on TV. Maybe even GAC Family, but I would say Lifetime more or less. Let me read the back to you, and then my notes, and then yes, on this one I did mark a few pages, so you don't want to go anywhere. Gold Valley's rodeo champion is facing the toughest challenge of his life, a Christmas wedding. Legendary bull rider Jake Daniels has only one plan this Christmas: to ignore the pain this season that always brings, until his best friend Callie Carson shows up on his ranch with a marriage proposal. Jake has lived so close to the edge, it's a miracle he's still alive. He knows all about risk, but marrying the woman he craves more than anything feels like the biggest risk of all. Callie Carson may be the rodeo royalty, but to fulfill her dreams of riding saddle broncs, she needs her inheritance, and to access that, she needs a husband. But Jake, the husband, is deliciously different from Jake, the friend, especially after the wild heat of their wedding night. He was only supposed to be her cowboy for Christmas, but Jake's every heart-stopping touch has Kelly questioning how she'll ever be able to walk away. And it says Yates writes a story with an emotional depth, intense heartache, and love that is hard to fight for. RT Book Reviews. Now I will read you what I wrote before I share the pages. Maisey is one of my favorite authors. I adore her books, the stories of family and love, and especially how it's a risk. The journey is so good. The book paints a vivid picture. I would love all the Gold Valley novels in a movie setting. I'm going to share with you some pages to make sure that you pick up this amazing novel, and after I do the pages, you'll get the rating. Okay, to give you a little background besides what I just read to you, I would tell you that Callie needs her trust fund. And basically, to get her trust fund, she has to be married, and she goes to her good best friend Jake Daniels with that, and that's how these two wind up married. Now we're coming close to the end of the marriage, so they've crossed a lot of boundaries, and now we're going to see, do they have what it takes to remain married or not? And I'm going to leave that, make you wonder with the pages that I'm going to share with you. On page 302, she had difficult conversations with her mom, and she'd had to have difficult conversations with herself about why she needed the rodeo so much and why she clung to those ideas of who she had to be. And then she had to let herself change, and a metamorphosis wasn't painless. A shift in who you were wasn't painless. No, she said, shaking her head, I matter because I'm me, and I get that now, along with understanding that me doesn't have to begin and end with a rodeo event. It's just when you open yourself up and you quit trying to make yourself into something and just let yourself be, things change. I don't need you to make me feel any kind of way about myself. I feel a whole lot more than I ever have, and I'm not hiding. She looked at him full in the face, there in brightly lit barns, standing underneath the fluorescent lights. The smell of the hay, the sound of the horses in their stalls, providing a backdrop for this moment. Perfect, really, because this is what the wet was grounded in, even if it wasn't who they were. I'm willing to give up everything I care a whole lot about to stay here and be with you because I care about the rodeo. Jake, I love you, Jake. The words left her mouth, and she felt like she had grabbed a hold of her heart, pulled it out of her chest, and showed it to him. That she was naked and vulnerable, and she was on the verge of death, standing there with the most integral part of her of what was on display. For him to accept or to crush, for him to embrace or push away. And while she had never felt more terrified in all of her life, she also never felt so strong. Not on the back of the bucking bronc, that not asking him to marry her, not at any point in time, not ever. In her terror, in her vulnerability, there was a strength that she had never imagined existed in her. This whole journey had led her there. peeling off her protective layers one by one, dealing with her family relationships that brought her here, changed her, broke her open so she could feel all of it, so she could risk it all. I love you, she repeated, with everything that I have. You are the future that I want, Jack Daniels. And if I can ride in the rodeo right along with that, then I will. But if it doesn't fit in, then I will know which one of those things I can leave behind, and it's not you. She felt free, weightless, this deep, unending revelation that washed over her like a light, like the keys to the chains that she put herself on. It wasn't about what she could do to prove herself. It was just about love, about loving what she did, loving those around her, believing they loved her. It was about loving Jake. Please don't say that, he said. I can't. I can't do anything with that. Why not? Dang it, he said, his words echoing in the barn. You know why. I've explained why to you. I've told you I'm not going to do marriage or family or anything like that. I just don't do it. You're a liar, she said, because this friendship on one side and boom boom on the other, it's both together, and I'm pretty dang sure that it's just love. Callie Carson, he said, you are without a doubt the best woman that I've ever known, the most talented, the brightest, the best, and you can't love me. Why not? Because this is domesticity. Might as well be as dying. My parents were miserable, and when they died, what was the point of that? That's what I learned. You can do all these things, make a life that looks a certain way, and just have to follow it, and it has to fall apart. You can die anyway. Your husband can be ready to leave anyway. Your wife can hate you anyway. And if there's a higher power out there, then that's BS. I don't believe in anything, and you, just look at you. You are strong, and you have dreams, and you believe in the beauty of things that I can't. That's not a love that you can survive, Cal, believe me. She faced him head on and made him look at her in the eye as she put her voice to her next question. So you don't love me? He turned away, and he didn't say no. He didn't say no. Jake, she shouted his name, don't be a coward. He turned around, grabbed a hold of her face, and looked at her eyes. His eyes was blazing. It doesn't matter. None of it matters, because this is not going to happen. It's not something that I can't give this to you. Then why don't you let me give it to you, she said. Why don't you let me carry this for a little while? Because I figured out some things about myself, and I can wait. We can just do all of this while you figure it out. That's what's going on, while you figure it out how to fix yourself. I can't be fixed, he said. His voice was low. I can't even have a conversation with my dang brother. You're the only person on this planet that knows what happened with my parents, that knows the truth about the situation, about me, and you can't fix that because my father is dead and I can't ask him. I can't ask him if it's going to be okay. We don't know, she whispered. You don't know. And I know that bothers you. I get it, but you can't. Things happen. I can't know how things are going to be if Sophie would have lived. That's her dead sister. She didn't, and we have to go on. You have to go on. It lives in my head. That moment when my mom left to go on that trip to go after my dad, and I felt like it was all right because I believed in a fairy tale. Callie, love wins. They lived happily ever after, but they didn't live happily ever after at all. But you are alive, Jake Daniels. You are alive. And whether it's happy or it's not, it's up to you, but you have to be brave enough. He started to walk away then, and then she felt her grip slipping on this thing between them, on what they had. What about me? Maybe I need you. Without you, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have learned how to ride bunking broncos. I wouldn't have learned how to stand up for myself. I would have never figured out what I wanted. You would have, he said. I know you would have. Maybe, she said, a tear falling down her cheek, a tear that didn't make her feel weak or embarrassed. Maybe so, Jack Daniels, but I wouldn't have been able to love you. And it matters. It does. It made me something different, and it changed me, and I like it. And I'm so tired of my life being shaped around other people who are gone, people I don't even know. I'm sorry about your parents. I know they matter to you, but Why do I always have to take the leftovers? Because there are people gone from this world that I have never even met. I'm leftovers, he rasped. I'm too damaged by all this. That's it? That's what you get? I'm sorry if that bothers you. I'm fine with that, actually. It's the not getting you that I'm not fine with. You love me, you damn coward. Admit it. I love you, he said. The words scraped raw against his throat. And it doesn't make any difference. Does that help? Did that help you? Because if we move into this house together, and if we do this, it's like dying, and I can't handle it. I can't take it. You're scared, she said. You don't trust the world, and you're afraid that the one wrong move is going to take something you care about from you, and that's not the same as having no hope or not believing. It's just cutting all the hard parts out so you don't have to deal with them. You keep telling me that you don't know how life will end up, that no one knows, but you just decided it's all bad so you can do your best to not get hurt, and then you get to be this big momentum to death, to being alone. You get to love me but not have everything, and tell yourself that you're being noble with it, not just afraid. It amounts to the same thing. And then he turned and walked away, leaving Callie standing there shattered. And she knew there was no arguing with him because he loved her. He loved her, and he wasn't going to let that be enough. There was no arguing against that. If he'd said it that he didn't love her, she might have had some hope that he was lying to himself, but he was just choosing the wrong thing. He was just choosing to be alone. She went into her bedroom on numb legs, sat down on the bed. She saw her duffel bag there on the floor, saw a peak of yellow down there. She leaned over and opened it up. She saw her wedding bouquet. She picked it up and crushed it to her chest, a sob rising in her chest. Oh, those silly weeds, those weeds. She'd been sad that day because she even dreamed of a real wedding day, but the wedding hadn't been real. These weeds were meant more than a dozen roses ever could. He pulled by the side of the road and picked her some weeds for a bouquet on their wedding day. And she tried in that moment to imagine her life without him. She tried to imagine the future that she wanted when she first come here and asked him to marry her. She tried to imagine when the rodeo had been most important thing, when her trust fund had been the only thing that mattered. Along the way, it had changed. Along the way, it had become something bigger and deeper. Along the way, it had become Jake. There had been other changes, too, and there were two things that were true. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't stay with him. And she had to go tell her father the truth. So, with those pages and an amazing story, does Callie and Jake wind up together and live happily ever after? Does Jake decide, you know what, I've seen so many train wrecks, I can't handle my own train wreck, and walks away? Or does Callie walk away? Or does some guidance from a parental figure help change things? I hope that wets your whistle with my little what-if scenarios. And rating 1,000 stars. I may not agree with the way that Callie was so bold and so aggressive, but I did like the love story, and that's what I will say. Hope that it makes you go out and pick up Rodeo Christmas at Evergreen Ranch, a Gold Valley novel by Maisey Yates. As always, Maisey, a great book. I am now reading the second book and hope to have a book review tomorrow for you, plus maybe a magazine, Her First Christmas Cowboy, and it's worth a review as well. Thank you for tuning in. God bless. Stay safe. Stay well. Until tomorrow.